What if pain, physical, mental, and emotional pain, isn't just a burden to endure, but a profound messenger with the power to transform your life and unlock a portal to personal growth and deeper meaning? You're listening to or watching the Sedona Soul Sisters Show, where we share psychic guidance and healing for embodied spiritual awakening. I'm Christel, and I'm on a mission to support spiritual practitioners to access your intuition, unlock your psychic gifts, and live your purpose. A big thank you to our listeners all over the world, and a special shout out to our listeners in Lexington, Kentucky. You can schedule sessions in West Sedona or virtual psychic readings, angel sessions, starseed readings, Akashic recode, hypnosis, soul contract work, Reiki, life coaching, and more at sedonasoulsisters.com. Each breath you take aligned with love repairs the healing web on planet Earth. Let's begin this episode with setting our intention. If there is a place in your body that you are currently experiencing pain and you can rest your hands on that place and it feels good to do so, I encourage you to do that now. Otherwise, place your hands wherever it feels most supportive for you. Gently close your eyes. Turn your attention inward. Begin deepening your breath, moving your breath deeper into your body, opening your heart, the front and back, expanding your belly and your rib cage, front and back and sides, and softening any tension you find yourself holding. May this episode support each of us in deepening our connection between our mind, body, heart, and spirit. May our practices support us in reducing stress in our systems so that we can live aligned with our purpose, to enjoy more play, deeper connections with ourselves, our loved ones, and the environment around us. And may this work support the greater good of all beings. And so it is. Pain is an inescapable part of the human experience, yet our relationship with it is often one of resistance, fear, and avoidance. We often view pain as an enemy to be conquered, a problem to be solved, a burden to be endured. But what if we shift our perspective and saw pain as not just a source of suffering, but as a profound messenger and a portal to personal growth and transformation? In this episode, we'll explore the wisdom of pain, the ways in which it can serve as a catalyst for positive change, and how embracing the journey through pain, with pain, can lead to a deeper understanding of ourselves, our purpose, and the profound interconnectedness of all life. Join me as we delve into the often misunderstood aspect of the human condition and discover how reframing our relationship with pain can unlock a path to greater resilience, meaning, and embodied spiritual awakening. It's important to take note of toxic positivity, which is not what I'm focusing on here on this episode, is trying to say, oh, pain is a beautiful thing and magic poof, your life transforms. So this isn't about gaslighting yourself or trying to trick yourself into whatever you are currently facing, physical, mental, emotional pain, that it isn't difficult. It is so important in all of the work that I do that first we come fully into the present moment and we honor our feelings. We validate our experience without getting stuck in old patterns, the mental habit loops, which I talked about in the last episode, or past stress patterns. So toxic positivity is a bypassing of that it's challenging. It's just like, oh, we'll look on the bright side, or it could be worse. These types of statements of look on the bright side, or I definitely have done this myself in the past. I really do my best to avoid it now, is to immediately shift into a positive reframe without fully landing in the present moment with myself, a client or a friend who is struggling, first, the key element of this is to be present with what is. This is hard. This hurts. To be in that rather than what often happens is trying to jump to fix it or bypass it or control it. So this episode is really focused on approaching the relationship with pain from a different perspective. And that is not one of denial. Denying that you're in pain in general can make things worse. The foundational aspect of shifting our relationship with pain is recognizing that it's incredibly stressful to be in pain on any level. So the number one thing to do in a dance with pain is regulating the nervous system. So what that means is reducing stress as much as possible. And one way to reduce stress in the system is to take deeper breaths. Gentle, slow breaths, as deep as possible without forcing. Also noticing what areas of the body are holding pain. We can talk about physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain, but often there are physical components to emotional and mental pain. Reducing stress being the number one thing to do in this practice. I want to share a brief part of my story so that you know that relationship with pain has been a personal journey that I've been on long before it became my profession. I was very sick as a child, almost died at 6 months old, and grew up in a very unhealthy environment. I had extreme allergies and asthma and almost died thousands of times, was on medication, was sick all the time, blah, blah, blah. I was an athlete as well, even though I was sick all the time. And I had a severe back injury when I was 17 years old, in which the doctors told me I was going to be on pain medication forever and that I would never compete again and that I needed to find a job that wasn't physically demanding. So this was me at 17 years old. And being physical, being an athlete was a huge part of how I managed stress in my system. So this was a massive turning point for me, this experience of chronic pain. After the injury, I was in constant pain all of the time. And at the time, I was in high school, so I was sitting in unpadded school desks, and it was excruciating. I couldn't sit, stand, walk, lie down without extreme pain. It was incredibly debilitating. And it was also this, this is going to be the rest of your life. Whew! For me, that injury and pain, it lit a spark inside of me that put me onto a totally different path. When I received the diagnosis, as well as the changes I would need to make in my life, I wasn't willing to accept it. And so I actively started looking for other pathways to expand the healing work that I had already been doing for myself personally. Before that physical injury, so much of the work that I was doing was working on healing the asthma and allergies. So this physical pain made it so that I needed to find practices that would support my own physical body in healing, which then opened the pathway for me to step into healing work. So it's important to mention that because it's relevant that I'm not somebody who's just studied pain and hasn't had issues with it, that it is so much of why I stepped onto this path of healing. And in the early days, the first training I went to was energy healing. Shortly after that, massage therapy, and then yoga therapy and Reiki, and a list of certifications. Initially, it was for my own healing. There was a big part of my career where my specialty was back pain. Back pain was something that I not only struggled with, but I also had a lot of skills and tools and personal experience of healing multiple back injuries and had evidence that it worked for me. So the good news is I'm not 17 anymore. Not even close, several decades past 17. And I am very happy with the way that my body moves and how strong I am, how flexible I am. My back is definitely something that I still have to pay attention to, but now there's very little time that I am in back pain, partly because I have learned how to support myself, how to create the flexibility, strength, and balance in order to be able to live a very active, fulfilling life. I'm not teaching about pain from a place of like, I read a book about it or, took a course. That pain and I go way back. And I've learned some things along the way that you may find helpful. In working with pain, as I mentioned, the first place to start is reducing stress in your system, in your body, mind, heart, in your life as much as possible. And part of the way to do that is to deepen your breath, notice where you're holding tension, get yourself as much support as possible. The next aspect to bring into this conversation to see pain as a messenger, as a portal, is to recognize there are many approaches to work with pain. And in my experience, the more avenues you work on at the same time, the more quickly things will shift. Meaning that addressing the physicality of the injury, which also includes things like water and nutrition, reducing inflammation, then looking at the mental aspect of working with pain, the emotional aspect of working with pain, the spiritual aspect of pain, the soul aspect. So it's not just approaching, I'm in pain, so I'm going to take Advil, and that's my approach. That it's looking at what are all of the possibilities of how I can support myself. So even though this episode is focused on seeing pain as a messenger, as a portal, we are still working with the idea of reducing pain, reducing the battle against pain so that we're reducing stress. We're also looking for the messages. Right? For me, that injury when I was 17 years old was life-changing. It completely changed the direction of my life. Before that, I had wanted to become a school teacher. And I did become a yoga teacher. And in many ways, I still see myself as a teacher, as an educator on health and spirituality and psychic development. But I did not become a grade school teacher. That is not what happened. We are looking to shift the relationship with pain and at the same time make our bodies, minds, hearts, souls more comfortable, in greater alignment. In looking at addressing, being with, dancing with pain on the physical level, an essential element of working with the physical challenges of being in pain is many of the things I talk about all the time. It's the beautiful part of this practice, is it's just looking at how the tools work to address pain, movement, breath, sound, nutrition, rest and relaxation, and connection, including connection with nature. So we're looking at all of these pieces and making it as simple and doable as possible, and doing what's possible one step at a time. And yes, part of that is keeping yourself moving, so one literal step at a time. The challenge with making changes to how you're approaching your physical body is oftentimes creating changes can increase stress. For example, to change your nutrition, to focus on reducing inflammation in the body, which from my perspective is important no matter what kind of pain you're in, is reducing inflammatory foods in your nutrition. I am one of those weird people that so-called health foods my body reacts poorly to in so many ways. And that's one of the challenges of being me. But it's also an invitation for me to deeply listen and not be like, oh, well, this is a health food and so therefore it's good for me. And this food reduces inflammation and therefore it does. Maybe not for me. Maybe not for you. Finding ways to reduce inflammation in your system through nutrition. And one of the ways to do that is eating foods that are as close to nature as possible, whole foods that are minimally processed, making sure you're getting enough water in your system, and then gentle movements. With all of the suggestions that I'm making today, we're approaching this from a perspective more of like micro changes to create sustainable lifestyle changes that last, right? It's been decades that I've been on this journey of changing how I approach my body, what I eat. Most of the changes that I've made in my life have happened over a period of time, have been gradually, and it includes doing a spring and autumn cleanse, which helps to reset my system. And then I've made gradual changes over time, which has improved my health in enormous ways, has reduced the pain. Now I have very little asthma at all. I still have some challenges with allergies, but it's nothing like when I was growing up. So I'm still in a process of refinement. So for you, keeping in mind that it's like doing 1% better. And I like focusing on when you are making nutritional changes, focus on adding instead of taking away. So what that could look like is I'm going to add more protein into each meal, or I'm going to add more vegetables into each meal. I'm going to add more low glycemic fruit into my meals, because then when you're adding things, it automatically makes less room for processed foods or ultra processed foods. The first thing we talked about was managing stress, reducing stress. So in trying to implement radical changes to your nutrition plan can amplify stress and make things worse. Focus on adding things instead of eliminating or going into some strict and rigid thing. Also, getting enough water. A couple of things that I like to do to increase my water intake is to add a little bit of lemon or lime juice to my water. I also will infuse water with different vegetables, like cucumber water can be a beautiful way to give the water some flavor. You can put berries in water. You can put a little of fresh squeezed orange in a large jug of water. I also like to use herbs. Like I will add some rose petals to flavor my water, or hibiscus, or make an herbal blend. It isn't herbal tea, but it's like an infusion of herbs into the water, which adds some flavor, which for me helps me drink enough water. I fill up the water bottles that I want to drink the next day, because before I started doing that, I would lose track of like how many glasses of water have I drank. And so I have the water bottles set up at night for the next day. And when I'm at home, I just pour the water from the bottle into a glass and drink it that way. Or when I'm out and about, I take the water bottles with me. And that helps me to make sure that I'm getting at least the minimum for me is 3 liters of water per day. And that makes a huge difference. When I started doing that, reduced how much I was getting sick dramatically. Stress, nutrition, hydration, movement. So finding the movement that is possible for you. Recently, I added working with weights 10 minutes a day, 5 days a week into my personal plan. I already hike every single day. I dance, I do yoga and movement every day, but I recently added weights into the mix. And there have been times like when my back has been injured, that like one of the first movement practices that I do is I stretch when I'm still in bed and I wake up in the morning. And then I get out of bed and I do some simple dance and stretching and movement to start my day. While I'm getting ready, I'm doing my movement practices to get my spine moving, to get my joints moving. That's built into my life. And I brought this up because of the stretching before I get out of bed thing. Even if you're in a phase of intense pain, that standing up and doing yoga or lifting weights or these kinds of things are out of reach for you, do what you can. There is so much that you can do sitting in a chair or laying on your back. A key part of this is opening your mind to what's possible. And that's the essential message in shifting your relationship with pain, is looking at what's possible. Because often when we're in a phase of intense pain, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, it is limiting, it is contracting, that feels like there's less options, it feels like there's no options. An aspect of this is being curious about what is possible. Okay, I can't do my normal yoga routine, and so what is possible? In 2020, I started hiking every single day. And I developed plantar fasciitis. I was committed to hiking every day anyway, so I worked out how I could make that work. But then I got creative with my yoga practice, where I went from doing standing poses to I did more kneeling poses, or I did more seated poses. It invited me to be much more creative in my practice so that I could keep moving my body. And that for me was a key part of healing the plantar fasciitis, was getting the muscles and the fascia in the soles of my feet moving. It was like the more that I sat still, the more it hurt. So I knew that I needed to be walking short distances more consistently, stretching really regularly. So it's looking at things like that, like what is possible, and then doing little things, literally one deep breath, stretching your arms overhead, or one deep breath and doing a neck roll, starting to incorporate those little breaks. It, first of all, helps to enormously reduce stress in your system, which was the number one thing we started with, but then it also creates greater mobility in your physical, mental, emotional system, which is such a huge part of this. Pain as a messenger and pain as a portal. So much of this is often in hindsight, right? It's easy for me now to talk about that injury from when I was 17. But if somebody would have said to me then, at some point you're going to be grateful for this injury, I would not have liked that person at all. I would not have been open to the message, because I was in such deep, enormous, insane pain. And also I felt like my life was over, that wasn't the time to look for it. So the time to look at what is the message of this is when there is positive progress being made, of being able to reduce stress in the system and dial the pain down, so then there can be a greater opening for what is possible from here. The recent episode I did was about a personal power reframe, about what if this is happening for me, which again is easier to do when you're not in the mix of a crisis. If you're in an intense phase of having a lot of pain, reducing stress, making shifts to take the best possible care of yourself, moving into a state of curiosity to keep your body moving, to breathe, to deepen your connection with the food that you're eating and how it's impacting your body, to getting the support you need, and being curious about what the invitation is, yet being gentle in that exploration. Because if the mental, emotional pain on top of the physical pain is really high, it can be really tricky to see it. And this is where practices like journaling or self-inquiry can come in, as well as being deeply compassionate with yourself, to just be like, the pain is too great right now. I can't look for the positive. I can't look for how this is a portal. What is this inviting me into? And like I said, with my example of when I was 17, that injury was a portal into stepping into a career in the healing arts, which is very easy to see and say now, decades later. There was also a period of time when I had moved back from Asia and I was living in the Bay Area and I was focusing on back pain. Well, at that point, because back pain was my specialty, I had an inordinate amount of injuries that happened. And each time it happened, I learned something new that I could help my clients with. And then I was like, okay, I'm done getting injured. I want to shift my specialty. Be gentle about the exploration of what is the message. How is this a portal? What is this inviting me into? What's possible from here? In the last episode, I talked about the mental and emotional bodies working together in harmony. I also talked about how they can have a very dysfunctional pattern, which the dysfunctional pattern of the mental and emotional body, when it gets together with physical pain, it's a disaster. So if you haven't already listened to that episode, I would encourage you to listen to that episode, because it can be really helpful if you are working with physical pain, is looking at how the mind and the emotions are hooking in a way that's making it harder than it needs to be. And that's not to say it isn't difficult to be in physical pain. Recruit the mind and the emotions to support you rather than making it harder than it already is. It can be interesting to explore what kind of pain you are experiencing and what part of the body it relates to and what the meaning of it is. And if you do that, I encourage you to do so gently, not as a diagnosis, just as a does this resonate for me? Is there something helpful in this for me? For example, when I was focused on back pain in my healing business, the thing that I found was that low back pain. I was very often speaking to clients about their relationship with money, and there were often deep fears in the first and second chakra, which then inspired me to go into wealth mastery coaching. So it opened an avenue, because I found myself consistently talking about money with low back pain. So then it opened up to step into getting a certification in coaching and looking at the relationship between money and low back pain. And Louise Hay really made this famous. And again, if you look into it, or if you know this, part of it is explore it lightly, gently, with curiosity, and also really listen more to your own intuitive guidance rather than what it says on the book, in a book or online. But it can be helpful to open the possibility, to open doorways for curiosity, to see what is the message here and how can it serve me in creating greater health and vibrancy in my personal system. I want to share one breathing practice with you that is helpful in reducing stress in the system, which is focusing on a longer exhale than inhale. For example, inhale is a count of 4. Extend the exhale to a count of 6. So you're still exhaling the same amount of air, but you are extending it. Part of this dials down your nervous system. Exhaling for a longer period of time than you are inhaling helps calm your nervous system, which again, calming the nervous system is going to reduce the feeling of pain and the stress in your system. So that's a powerful practice. And in general, as I mentioned, pain is contracting. We tend to grip, not just physical pain. We tend to contract in our bodies and hold tension in our bodies. So getting into the habit of breathing more deeply, extending the exhale longer, moving your body gently to release tension in the body goes a long way. And then be in the gentle exploration of what the message is for you, what the invitation is for you, what is there for you to learn, or what is there for you to see, feel, sense, know that wasn't available before the current situation. I hope this has been helpful for you. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you have questions, you can post them in the comments. If you are receiving this by email, feel free to reply with your questions. If you're seeing this on Facebook or Instagram, you can post in the comments what questions you have and how I can further support your practice. Thank you for being a part of our community. I'm honored to support your embodied spiritual awakening. Are you ready for a personalized rites of passage in Sedona with me? The rites of passage is an extraordinary 2-day private retreat in Sedona designed to support your embodied spiritual awakening. The pressure of the current global challenges are calling spiritual practitioners to embrace purpose, power, and pleasure on a profound level. If you're passionate about awakening the divine within and ready to embody your legacy, step into leadership, and live your purpose, this in-person immersion is for you. Schedule your life-changing private immersion in Sedona at sedonasoulsisters.com/purpose. Leave a review and follow on your favorite podcast app. Until next time, breathe gently, follow your guidance, and create miracles.